Hi everybody. Okay, so I figured out the webcam this week, so here I am. And forgive me, I'm sort of looking at notes, looking at you, and so I apologize for when I'm not looking at you at all. Um, so what I did this week is I looked at Elizabeth Barrett Browning and I looked at the letters of Queen Victoria. And what I wanted to do was sort of compare and contrast their ideologies on the role of women, and then look at how they are a reflection of, or how it's reflected in Victorian England in the society regarding the role of women. What was their place, and I think there was it's a very paradoxical time, and I think that these two women really capture that well. They're on opposite sides of the spectrum here, and I think that what I found, I think it does a good job of capturing that. So let me know what you think. What I'm going to do is I found particular passages that really just jumped out at me, that really captured, with Aurora Leigh, the determination and the empowerment, and then with Queen Elizabeth, exactly what she thinks of the role of women. Also very powerful, but completely opposite of what Browning seems to think. So I just want to share those passages with you and tell you, what I see in them, and then sort of look at how they compare and contrast to each other, and then how that pops up in society. So the first passage that really stood out to me in Aurora Leigh is, you give us doting mothers and perfect wives, sublime Madonnas and enduring saints. We get no Christ from you, and verily we shall not get a poet in my mind. And I feel like he's saying, well, you're a woman. You're not going to be a poet. You're not a man. You're not going to fill that role. You can be the doting mother. You can be the perfect wife. You can even be the sublime Madonna, but you're no Christ. You're not the man. You're not the man in charge. So you may as well just accept your role and be my wife, and he goes on to say, if your sex is weak for art, and I, who said so, did but honor you by using truth in courtship, it is strong for life and duty. And there's two things about this that really stand out to me. One, it's like he's saying, well, you're never going to be a poet because you can't be that good at it, but you can be a really good wife. And then the other thing that I thought, and I think the whole passage is sort of condescending, but really the honor you by using truth in courtship, that's the part that really gets me. Like, I did you a favor by pointing out the truth about women, and you should appreciate that. And I imagine, Aurora Leigh saying, really? Okay, well, here's what I think of that. And then she tells him, with quiet indignation I broke in. You misconceive the question like a man who sees a woman as the complement of his sex merely. You forget too much that every creature, female as the male, stands single in responsible act and thought, as also in birth and death. And I really like this passage because the way I see it, or the way I'm understanding it, the way I'm reading into it, is that she's telling him, I'm not an ornament, I'm not a decoration, I'm not something that completes your idea of what your life ought to be. That's the way that you see women, and that's not right. And I like how she's saying, putting men and women on equal ground, and saying that they're both responsible, single and responsible act and thought, that they both have the same obligations, and they both can take the same action. And I like that it's strong, and it's empowering, and it's I just really like the passage. It says so much about what she thinks about the capacity for, that women have for all the things that they want to have in their life, how empowered they can be, and what they can do, what they can accomplish, and how these are, it's no different from what a man can accomplish. We can do the same things, and I love it. And I love how nonconformist she is. Because this was not, even though the Victorian era, things were changing and there was a lot of stuff taking place that was helping women move forward, it was very patriarchal still. The ideal woman was, this wasn't her, and I love it. And then the last thing, the last line that I want to share that really stood out to me is just the line. It's one line: "I also have a vocation, work to do." And I love the simplicity of the statement, that you can't argue with her. This is just the way it is. She has work to do. She is going to be a poet. And then she does. She goes off and she's a poet. And I love it. It's fantastic. So I read through all of that, and I had all these, I really liked it. Like, I'm going to read more by Browning. I think it's great. And then I went on to Queen Victoria's letters to her daughter and to Martin and Gladstone, and there were two different things that I think are very, very different that stood out to me. And in the first set of letters that she's writing to her daughter, I think mostly what it seems like she's doing is that she's sort of condemning the role of women, and in some of these lines, I think our sex a most unenviable one, or talking about pregnancy. I like this one: "How can anyone who has not been married above 2 years and 3/4 rejoice at being a third time in that condition?" Which, reading it, made me think, oh, she really didn't like being pregnant. And then on talking about becoming a wife, and I think this one takes the cake. "When I think of the merry, happy, free young girl, and look at the ailing, aching state a young wife generally is doomed to, which you can't deny is a penalty of marriage." I don't think she was very happy being married. I think that it just seems so. It's a real downer. It seems like such a downer, and so it seems like she really is sad about the role of women. Like, it's depressing to her. Like, she's mourning over having to be a woman and having to deal with these tribulations. And then she turns around and gets super ticked about suffrage. And I know you guys probably read this, but there are a couple of passages that I really want to read out of the book, because they're the ones that really just caught my eye. So when she is talking about suffrage, I love this. "The circumstances respecting the bill to give women the same position as men with respect to parliamentary franchise gives her an opportunity to observe that she had for some time past wished to call Mr. Gladstone's attention to the mad and utterly demoralizing movement of the present day to place women in the same position as to professions as men." And then when she says, "Let woman be what God intended, a helpmate for a man, but with totally different duties and vocations." And this doesn't seem so scathing as the next one. She clearly believes that men and women have completely different roles, and she does not want them to be on equal footing in that they're doing the same things. I think that she wants women to be thriving in this role and men to be thriving in that role, but never shall they meet. So, okay, but here's the one that I really, really like. So, her letter to Sir Theodore Martin. This is good. So, sorry, I'm just kind of laughing because it really caught my attention. So, "The Queen is most anxious to enlist everyone who can speak or write to join in checking this mad, wicked folly of woman's rights, with all its attendant horrors on which her poor feeble sex is bent, forgetting every sense of womanly feeling and propriety." And women would become the most hateful, heartless, and disgusting of human beings were she allowed to unsex herself, and where would be the protection which man was intended to give the weaker sex? So, on the one hand, being a woman sucks. You gotta deal with pregnancy and being married and having this aching, ailing life. And on the other hand, don't change it. let women stay where they are, let men stay where they are. And it's this paradox that, I mean, she's a paradox in herself, and sorry. Anyway, so I think that paradox within herself, but then also between the two women, between Browning and between Victoria, are present in Victorian England. And there was the ideal Victorian woman. She was well behaved, she was domesticated, she was devoted to her home and to her family, but at the same time there was a lot of motion for regarding women's rights and the right to vote, trying to bring these things around. So I was looking on the Duke University. I was looking at the timeline for British women in the 19th century. And there are some fantastic things that happened just during Victoria's reign, right? So 1839 Child Custody Act allows women to petition for custody of children under 7 years of age. And before that, they didn't get to keep their kids. Kids went with dad. That's all there was to it. And then there was... in 1870, Married Women's Propriety Act gives women full rights over inheritances and money earned after marriage. Everything they made during marriage still stayed with the husband, but it's a step forward. And then in 1893, the third Married Women's Property Act gives women control of all their own property. I mean, that's huge, and we're talking about just Victoria reigned for quite some time, 63 years, I think. But I mean, still to have so much change in what's really just a very small piece of history is just phenomenal. I mean, it's this huge, big thing. And I think, having during Victoria's reign, having that ideal woman, the domestic, the calm, the well-behaved, and then at the same time, all of this upheaval about, women's rights and pushing for equality and all of these things, it created this huge paradox that was all present in 19th century England. And I think that Browning and her ideologies and Victoria and her ideologies really represent well all of the different factors that created this paradox. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. If you think that, am I on the money? Am I completely off? I'd like to have you guys chime in and tell me what you think. If you think that, these two women really do capture these things, or if you think that I'm just like, heading off into outer space and you have completely different ideas. I'd really like to hear it. So anyhow, thank you for being patient and sitting through my first video. Hopefully it goes well, and now I can figure out how to post it. And I really look forward to reading your comments and seeing what you guys think. Thanks.